Let's imagine a scenario where this guy walks up and says, "Hey, you want to play some weird game I decided to make?" Now, after a little bit of questioning, you end up finding out that he's actually talking about something where he's hid 100 pennies around the town, and you and four other people have to try and find them in order to stay in the rounds. And whoever makes it to the end of the game, they're going to win, I don't know, a cash prize, let's say, which is ironic for our example. However, you only have to find 5 pennies to make it through round one. Now, there's 100 pennies and 5 participators, so you only have to find 1/20th of the total pennies, yet you represent 1/5 of the competition. It shouldn't be too difficult. And you do what you have to do. You find those 5 pennies throughout the week, take it real casual because you figure this is round one. It's supposed to be casual, right? But not everyone has your same perspective. And everybody else is thinking, well, there's rounds where I have to have more pennies later on. I'm just going to find as many as I can now. And there ends up only being around 20 pennies left after the first week. Now, the top guy has 35 pennies to his name, and he ends up dropping 20 of those pennies somewhere. So those are now in circulation as well. They're still in the game, but he's feeling a little upset about this. He feels like that he worked way harder than anyone else to get those pennies. He knows that he would have made it to the end. He literally had over a third of the total game supply. How could he not win? And yet now it's all just gone in one foul move. He made one mistake to lose it all. Now, it was his mistake. He dropped them, but is it really fair to say he doesn't deserve a second chance? That's how he feels, at least. So he goes up to the game designer and he says, "Hey, do you think you could just give me like another 20 pennies? I dropped them. Like, I'll show you all the proof of how hard I worked. I'll show you I found them all myself." And he ends up convincing the guy to give him another little lump sum of 20 pennies. Now, like I said, you already had all your pennies in the game before. Your 100 pennies over here, those are still in the game because he dropped them. They didn't get incinerated, they still do exist. But now the game has a little bit more in the way of pennies in it. There's 120. Unfortunately, the rule has now been changed because you didn't need 5 pennies to make it through. You needed 1/20th of the total supply. And now there's 120 pennies. 1/20th of that is 6 pennies. And guess what? You just found out on the very last day of the round that now you have a few hours left to find another penny before the round's over and you're eliminated. So you're scrounging through trying to find one of those last 20 pennies when there's already very few left. Only the most obscure ones remain. And you end up getting kicked out of the game because of the fact that somebody who would have made it through the next round easily ended up needing a bailout. Now, I'm not saying that this represents all inflation, but when it comes to a currency that is being constantly inflated by different things, whether it's spending projects, political bailouts, or anything else, there is going to be, of course, a response. You're not going to be able to continue producing currency without having it become devalued. And for the mega rich who already have enough pennies or enough cash in real life to make it through life, they're not going to see the effects of inflation as much. But for the guy who's just making enough to pay rent this month, well, maybe next month it's not going to be enough. And it's just something to consider. I hope this video can kind of be a visual example of why adding more currency to what we already have causes it to lose value over time. The same way that these pennies lost value in the game because of the fact that now 1/20th of their total supply represented 6 instead of 5, and there's still only 5 participants. That's what you end up with.